Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to Season 5 and episode number 841 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Oh, Canada, always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026, and it is a lovely day here in Jalapa, Mexico. Buen dia, everyone. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, and with me as usual is my friend Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Kids and cubs, how is your mental health today? Mine is a little rough. I don't know if you had been following, I'm not sure if I put it everywhere, but if the story of my trip to Mexico in terms of getting here was a movie, it would be Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and Boats. We left home on, I think it was the 31st, and about 30 minutes from home, our car broke down. We got an engine problem, and we were told to bring it to the dealer. Fortunately, we were about 15 minutes away from the dealer from whom we bought the car, so we brought it there directly, and they were nice enough to give us a ride to the train station, where we caught a train that was running late as well. And of course, it was a last-minute ticket, so the price was rather salty. In order to be able to get to Toronto on time for my Beaver Sweeties brother's birthday, which was yesterday. So happy birthday, Andre, la mulțumim, as they say in Romanian. And we got there just on time to make the dinner, which was wonderful. And then we went to bed, and the next day we went to the airport, and the plane couldn't leave because apparently the tire on the plane was flat. So they had to go exchange it and put a new one on. Good thing they did, because when we landed, we kind of bounced. So it was good to have, very good to have good tires. I have no idea actually where I'm supposed to look right now. I'm trying to look right into the lens of the camera, but I'm not sure. Yeah, okay, it does put my eyes there. Okay, it's just every time I actually look at myself on the camera, I seem to be in a weird place. That's life on the road for you. So yeah, they had to replace the tire, and then so we left about 2.5 hours later than we thought we were going to, which made us very concerned for being able to get to our lodging, because we had to take a water taxi to get here, and they stopped at around 6 o'clock in the evening, and it was looking like it might be tight, especially if we had a long time at customs and passports and all that kind of stuff. Fortunately, in Mexico, they now have the automatic or electronic system like you have in Canada. So actually getting through passport control and customs was fairly easy and straightforward. And we were able to make it here in time. So we are on vacation. I'm not sure if you can hear any other sounds other than me, but it seems that some of you have said cue the cock early because the roosters are going. They're right behind, right beside us. Let's see, what else do we have here? If you'll just excuse me for 1 second, I'm going to close the window, so hopefully it doesn't pick up any extra sound. I will be right back. There we go. You probably did hear the sound of the window, and hopefully that there won't be too many distractions that way. But they are. There's a chorus. There's a chorus of cocks. So yeah, we got here, but everything's fine. Yelapa is nice and quiet and beautiful, little cobblestone streets. There are no real roads here. If there's any vehicles, people are circulating on mopeds and ATVs. But very quiet, very calm, except of course for roosters. And earlier there was some cats fighting at some point, and of course dogs every now and then. But that's life in Mexico here. So it's part of the sabor of the place, the flavor of the place, and I'm very much enjoying it. We're at a very lovely place here in Yelapa with good accommodations. And we're here for a couple of days before we then move on to Puerto Vallarta. We wanted to start vacation someplace a little more calm so we could have some time to disconnect. There have been a certain number of frustrations. Unfortunately, it hasn't been completely smooth, and I don't actually feel like I'm on vacation just yet because we've had to handle a lot of curveballs. But we think we've got them all taken care of now. So the rest of the vacation, fingers crossed, will be smooth, and I'll be able to come back to you nice and rested. All right, there's a lot to talk about today, so let's get into it. We won't have a lot of time to go into the subjects as in depth as we might want to for some of the first ones, only because I am pre-recording this for you today. And if I'm doing a pre-record with a plan, I can only do a show of an hour or less. So it might be a short one today. I don't think I'm going to have a second one today because I'm doing this one rather late where we are. But of course, over the course of the weekend, we learned of passing Catherine O'Hara, I believe at age 71, star of Schitt's Creek and the Home Alone movies, if you know her. And of course, SCTV, a legend of comedy, brought so much joy, so much laughter, and the tributes just came pouring in from all around the world. As a Canadian, it's very, very heartwarming to see how much one entertainer, who was a great ambassador for us, could have affected so many people so positively. And she is really, really going to be missed. Again, our country is poorer for having lost another person because she was brilliant. I was watching a report that was stating she showed that you could do comedy and be Canadian, that you could do comedy and be kind rather than cutting. And she was just a joy of person. I also remember when she received her Governor General Medal, and I think it was during COVID, so they couldn't attend the ceremonies, and there was a singer. His first name is Noah, and I can't remember his last name for the life of me off the top of my head, but he sang a version of A Case of You by Joni Mitchell for her. Joni Mitchell, by the way, who just won a Grammy, another Canadian, makes us proud. Yeah, we sang A Case of You, and she was very emotionally moved by the tribute. So yeah, we've lost a great actress. I saw this wonderful editorial cartoon, I think it was from Michael Deatter, showing her leaping into John Candy's arms, uh, of course, in heaven. So that was a beautiful picture. It kind of captured everything, really. So yeah, she will be missed a lot. Um, and I think I might have mentioned she was on this little show named Schitt's Creek, who won a whole bunch of Emmys. She did win an Emmy Award for her portrayal of Moira Rose, I think it was the last name, on that show in the final season. So yeah, just a very, very accomplished actress. Not to mention the sort of mockumentary films by Christopher Guest, like A Mighty Wind and Best in Show, in which, again, she, with Eugene Levy, who was a very, very close friend, was simply, again, brilliant. They are great movies. If you haven't seen them yet, do take the time. They are well worth it, especially if you like some a deadpan humor or a mockumentary style humor, right? Because that's a particular style of movie. But she was great in both of those. So yeah, we will miss her. We will miss the laughs. Also, before I started to do the show Kids and Cubs, I had logged down to my computer and I saw an article that popped on about 41 minutes ago that hopefully it won't be too long, but it could cause some problems for some conservatives because it would appear here, according to Mike Crawley of CBC News, that nearly 6 years after pleading guilty to a crime that should have made him inadmissible, Jeffrey Epstein visited Canada, and federal government officials are providing no answers about why he was allowed into the country. Documents confirming Epstein's travel to Vancouver in 2014, when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister, were among the 3 million pages released by the U.S. Department of Justice on Friday from its probe into the allegations the convicted sex offender ran a child sex trafficking operation catering to the rich and powerful. We are told that these are the final documents that are to be released. I am not convinced of that. I'm just going to say that I'm not convinced that everything has been released yet. It's unclear why Epstein was admitted to Canada given his 2008 guilty plea and 18-month jail sentence on 2 prostitution charges, including soliciting prostitution from a minor. So yeah, he was deemed inadmissible to Canada because he had been convicted of at least one crime that would constitute an indictable offense under Canadian law, according to an official letter from Canadian Consulate in Los Angeles in 2018. The letter rejected Epstein's application for a temporary resident permit that would have granted him an exemption to travel to Canada despite his record. So admitted into the country under the Stephen Harper government and denied entry under the Justin Trudeau government. I have a feeling that conservatives are going to be asked a lot of questions about this over the next coming days and probably will not have answers. The news comes out on a very interesting day too, because Stephen Harper is celebrating, I think, 20 years since he was first elected prime minister. There was a big event with him and Jacques Chrétien actually on stage together, sharing a few laughs and giving some commentary, which of course prompted me to wonder, oh, well, if we have Stephen Harper on stage sharing laughs with Jacques Chrétien a few days after Stephen Harper admitted that he talked to Mark Carney and he advised Mark Carney pretty much to do what he is doing, which would have been a different position that he himself admits he would have taken about a year ago. Yeah, I'm waiting for a conservative now to start referring to Stephen Harper as a liberal still. I know. So yeah, this comes as he says, celebrating his 20th anniversary. I'm sure that's going to put a damper on celebrations. So yeah, there'll probably be more on that over the next coming days. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. But what we're here to talk about today is the Conservative Party of Canada convention. Yesterday, of course, was Groundhog Day, and if you're in Ontario, Wyerton Willie saw his shadow. But a day before, at the Conservative convention, the delegates there chose to keep Pierre Poilièvre as the leader of the party, which means that the Conservative Groundhog has declared that it will be 6 more years of political irrelevance for the Conservatives. I had to. I just had to. It's certainly not going to be just 6 weeks. Let's put it that way. It seems that the Conservatives have voted for utter irrelevance and for a life on the opposition benches by maintaining Pierre Poilièvre. He had a resounding victory, as one would have expected, given it was not a one-member, one-vote convention, but a delegated convention where every electoral district or riding was entitled to send a certain number of delegates. I've seen 12 in a news article. I've seen somewhere else where it said 10. Whatever the number is, each riding was able to send a certain number of delegates. And there, they voted, of course, they had to pay about $1,000 for the privilege of doing so, which is kind of interesting. And as we know, the Conservatives in Ontario, Progressive Conservatives, were having their own party convention at the time. So there wasn't a lot of people from Ontario that was going, and there probably weren't a lot of people from Eastern Canada, Ontario East, that were going. It's in Calgary, which was Pierre's hometown in January. So, not necessarily the most convenient time or pleasant time weather-wise to be in that area. But Pierre, the result is what the result is, and Pierre got the result that he wanted. He passed his leadership review with, let me check here, 87.4% of the vote of the delegates who were there and cast a vote, which is higher than Stephen Harper's 84% that he obtained after the first election. He lost to Paul Martin. So in terms of the numbers, he's very, very safe and not going anywhere. There's a lot of people, there's some people that expressed surprise that it wasn't in the 90s, given that it was a hand-picked delegation, pretty much, for all intents and purposes. We have Fred Delory, the campaign manager from the 2021 election, who claims that it is not true that people were asked to pledge their loyalty to Pierre before being selected as a delegate. He claims he wasn't. I'm going to take it that by virtue of the fact that he was the campaign manager of 2021, nobody felt they needed to ask for his pledge of loyalty to Pierre. So Fred basing the experience only on himself is probably not the best representative sample. Some very quality journalists have reported this, and well, the Conservatives are not beyond being a litigious party, and no journalists are currently being sued for defamation for telling this alleged lie. So I'm going to be generous and assume that Fred Delory assumed that his personal experience was the experience of every other delegate there. And I'm not necessarily convinced that that is the case. So we'll leave it at that. However, in those results, Kits and Cubs, there's a lot of things there to be looked at. Because yes, the result is 87.4%. That there's no doubt on that. However, not all the delegates showed up, which was very interesting. I believe that a maximum of greater than 4,000 delegates had authorization to be there and cast a vote. And turnout was around in the 60%, between 60 and 70%. Somewhere in the middle there, maybe 66 or something, or 64, somewhere in there. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head here. I'm trying to bring them up, but the computer here is a little slow. So we got that. The delegates didn't all vote, number one. So of the delegates, so people are doing the math and they're saying of the delegates that voted, and you also have to note here that because he got 87.4, that means 12.6% of the delegates that did cast a vote paid $1,000 to be able to go to Calgary and vote no to Pierre. So all is not well in PeePeeville, although that amount is usually considered as reasonable for this type of event. But yes, when you count the number of delegates that showed up and then the yes votes he got from that, it would appear that in reality, basically that 87.4% adds up to 58% of all the delegates entitled to cast a vote. Now, in fairness, we could say that those who didn't show up, were chosen as delegates and didn't show up, were probably quite fine with Pierre's performance, or indifferent, but not bothered enough to show up and vote no or yes. So you can read into that, but what to read into that, we don't really know, because there's no real surveys of delegates that didn't attend and asking them why. Some may have not attended simply because they also assumed it was a foregone conclusion, and therefore, why spend the money and why spend time away from your family? It could be that simple, right? We can't necessarily assume that this is a negative, that people did not come to vote. However, it's still a pretty, that the turnout to vote was so low could be an indication of something. Like I said, we don't know, but it could be. But when you add all that up, those who have done the math, turns out that 58% of all the delegates who were entitled to cast a vote in favor of him staying. So a lot of people are trying, people who are not pro-conservative are trying to spin this as he got really 58%, and conservatives, of course, are saying, well, no, he got this resounding 87.4%. He's our guy, he's our man, he's got the whole party behind him, go Pierre, go. Again, you do with that what you want. Some people are pointing out that when Stephen Harper had his convention for his leadership review, that turnout was significantly higher, which made it such that the final number, ended up being something like 78%, if you were doing the math same way, of all the delegates that were eligible to have cast a vote would have. So yeah, I have the numbers here. 4,116 delegates were entitled to cast a vote. 2,700 or 66%. Trying to look at this. So yes, so 66% of the delegates eligible to show up did show up. That's so 2,558 attended. 2,166 voted yes for the 84.7. 1,950 voted no. And so they do the math. 2,528 who attended divided by 4,116 who could have. That amounts to, drum roll please, just looking at the picture, 53% support. So yeah, and then people are obviously, as I said, making the comparisons with Stephen Harper, and noting how significantly lower it is. And that's not a surprise. I mean, you even have Stephen Harper on camera saying that he would be doing things the way that Mark Carney is right now if he were still Prime Minister. Thank God he's not, but there you go, which means he and Pierre Poilièvre are on the different sides of the issue. And I'm old enough to remember back in the days of the election when Stephen Harper at the last minute produced this video stating that he was, as Prime Minister, he had a chance to hire both Pierre Poilièvre and Mark Carney, or have them both work under him, and he would choose Pierre Poilièvre any day. And it seems he doesn't believe that anymore. Interesting. Which also makes it such that this convention and this result seals the deal that not only is this not your grandpa's progressive conservative party anymore, it's not even really a Harper conservative party anymore. It's an entirely different beast, as Mr. Grizzly keeps on saying. It's the full takeover of the Progressive Conservative Party of Canada by the Reform Wing was confirmed here at this leadership convention. There's been some bad news following the convention for Pierre in terms of public opinion polling and all that kind of stuff. According to Angus Reid, his net favorability is -26, and according to Abacus, it's -6. Those are the two polling companies known to have results that put the Conservatives in the best light from time to time. Those same two polling companies, when it comes to Mark Carney, show a +26. That's for Angus Reid. So that is a 52-point spread between the two, whereas Abacus shows a +23 for Mark Carney, which makes a 29-point spread there on favorabilities between the two leaders. Also, there's 4 public opinion polls that have come out recently. Angus Reid shows that in the party positions that the Liberals are ahead by 3. Abacus shows the Liberals ahead by 4, Liaison shows the Liberals ahead by 9, and Leger shows the results by 8. And the people at Polling Canada this evening were teasing that this is not all of the bleeding we are going to see. Post Davos and Mark Carney's speech that was heard around the world, there are other elements that count in public opinion polling that should be of concern for the Conservatives, and that's 338.com, the polling aggregator that I've been mentioning. It has been showing the Conservatives and the Liberals pretty close together now, and Liberals out of majority territory, and Conservatives even within striking distance somewhat. But the last 2 weeks, there's been a gap widening between the parties. So according to 338.com at the moment, they are showing Liberals back in majority territory with 173 seats if an election were to be held today. That is not good news for the Conservatives, who just voted to keep the guy with whom that spread is becoming reality. Again, this is what they've decided for themselves. They want to be that party. Clearly, they like it. They quite enjoy it. They feel that they're getting something out of it. They feel it's working for them somehow, even though the Conservatives lost the 4 last elections in a row with 4 different leaders. I'm not sure that what they think is working for them actually is. It would appear that, how would I say it? It would appear that, I'm trying to find the correct words here, because I don't want to be over dramatic or oversell it. But it would appear that, at least for the moment, that Mark Carney is riding some type of a high post Davos, and either that Canadians have that speech really confirmed it for them that he's their guy, or just enjoyed seeing someone stand up to Trump, and they're rewarding the Prime Minister for that. How long that bump will last, we don't know, because there does have to be some results at some point, and people have to see that, and people have a certain amount of patience for the time between the time they elected him and they're going to start seeing shovels on the ground. As we mentioned on a previous show, the Port of Montreal is doing very well, and there was another news report lately that the major project at Darlington is actually ahead of schedule and under budget at the moment, which is also a very good thing for the Prime Minister. So 338.com is showing the Liberals at 173, the Conservatives at 135 in terms of the seat projections. So yeah, and they're showing in terms of the popular vote, Liberals at 42 and Conservatives at 38. So there's a 4-point lead between the parties now, who were relatively neck and neck just 2 weeks ago in public opinion polling. So that is probably not going to be well received in Conservative ranks. Also, post-event, it seems that there is some drama. Some of the delegates there have been posting publicly online about certain events that took place during the conference. And we have Jason Lavigne, who I believe is in independent media. And he says here in a tweet, 2 years in a row, I received a media pass for the UCP AGM and even had Premier Daniel Smith on the show a couple of times. After contacting the CBC Media Relations for media pass, I didn't even get a courtesy no, nothing. It's a bad look. And he goes on. There is another person, Blaine Badiuk, who's a member of the transgender community and does support the Conservatives. The Conservatives had an opportunity to vote at the policy convention on policy with regard to transgender people, and they did not vote for something that would harm them. Well, technically they did. 52% of them did, but it seems that there is a dual path where you have to get a majority on both, and they didn't get the majority on the second one. So it seems that in terms of that, I think it had to do with conversion therapy. So the Conservatives at the policy convention did not vote to support conversion therapy, which should make Garnet Genuis particularly angry. But Blaine Badiuk is this person's name, said, this is deeply concerning, especially when influencers, including an Alberta separatist, got in for free. So it seems that people that were coming as observers and delegates had to pay the $1,000, but the online influencers like Pleb and them got in for free. And interestingly enough, it seems that it was Pleb who announced the results. When he did so, he said something like, we are so effing back. Probably not, given the tweets that are going around. So there was a young man named Michael Harris who said, I came to the Conservative Party of Canada convention here in Calgary today as an observer, bought an observer ticket, I followed the rules, I showed up in good faith because I believe political parties should be open to scrutiny. And, well, it would seem that he was not happy with his experience there at the party convention. And then we have Rachel Parker typing up here, journalist Jason Lavigne and I were both barred from the CPC convention held in our backyard this weekend, despite having some of the biggest platforms in Alberta. Okay, if you say so. Are the journalists and influencers who were given access really not going to speak up on this censorship? So a lot of people not happy, and those three wrote other tweets after those, and You might be able to tell by the tone of them how unhappy they are. Jason Levine said, they know what will happen to the party if they lose the most conservative province. Could be why Pierre has already bailed on his Alberta seat. But yeah, they should be using honey instead of vinegar on this one. It seems that Pierre Poilièvre has announced that when the next election comes along, he will not run in River Crowfoot. He will be looking for another place, and that Damien Currick will be running in that seat again. So Battle River Crowfoot, there you go. Bonnie Critchley told you that you probably wouldn't see him. And I don't know how hard he's going to fight for the next while, given that he doesn't intend to run there again. He's already telling you that he has no desire to be your MP anymore. You can take that for what you will. It seems that here there was also some behavior towards conservatives in Canada, behavior of conservatives in Canada towards Alberta separatists. A lot of people saying you think they'd be begging them to stay and treating them nice, but no. So again, not everything is going well in PeePeeville. Blaine Badiuk wrote with regards to Daniel Smith. Remember, Daniel Smith got 91.5% of the vote with a coordinated attack against her. Winning in the mid-80s is not that big of a win. Nonetheless, now we must unite as conservatives and work to form a majority government. So we have some people here diminishing the size of Pierre's win. And Rachel Parker, for her part, took a clip of Melissa Lansman, who was saying something in a video and quoting her saying, I'm an MP from Ontario. And she goes, enough said. Okay, not a lot of love. Thus, all of this is confirming what we keep on saying to you on the show. The only people that conservatives hate more than progressives or liberals are each other. Because the convention wasn't even 24 hours over that they were already diminishing Pierre, expressing beefs with the party, creating a rift between themselves and the paid influencers. All of this stuff is going on. So the conservatives voted to keep Pierre. Let the floor crossings begin. I declare the games open as your queen. Before the vote, Pierre delivered a speech, of course, and you probably saw clips of it by now. I will be honest, if I had to put myself in the shoes of the people that were in that audience, I would have eaten that up. It was 100% bullshit, but it was well crafted, relatively well delivered on bullshit that was tailor-made for the ears it was written for. And it seemed to go over really well in the room. It was kind of interesting, though. There were certain moments where, for example, Pierre was talking about people with addictions and whatever his policy is for that. And there was applause for that, applause for bringing back safe all our brothers and sisters who have addiction problems. And there was, applause that goes for that. But that applause was nowhere near as loud as applause for other things. So I'm not sure if it was just because it was a more serious, a little more somber moment in the speech, and therefore people curbed their enthusiasm because tonally that might not work. But given how loud they were applauding for everything and many specific things, it was kind of interesting that keeping people alive was not something that generated, whoa! But again, could be the subject matter and the shift of tone in the speech at the time was not necessarily coherent with a large burst of applause. So there might not be anything there. It just struck me when I was listening to it. There are a couple of things out there that they're clapping, but they're not clapping as hard for as other things. Interesting. During his speech, Pierre said a lot of things. I might not be able to get to all of them today. I might have to do that in another episode. But there were some very interesting moments. In the very first minutes of the speech, he gave a shout out to the convoy, and he really tied the Conservatives to the convoy by trying to make a joke, which admittedly was not necessarily an unfunny joke, but it had my mouth agape because it's like, dude, do you know what you just did? I believe he said something like, I love seeing so many conservatives in one place, but it must freak the liberals out enough to invoke the emergency. So he's kind of admitting that the convoy was a conservative movement. And this was in the opening of his speech. He did continue on to throughout the speech. He also had some softer side moments where he talked about his wife, talked about his daughter, talked about his parents. You would expect that. That's part of the tonal shift. He's trying to show that he could be softer. There were a couple of times in the speech where Pierre broke into soft voice to talk about stuff that was, a little more sensitive or tragic. Like I said, crafted, well crafted, somewhat well delivered, but nothing in it that would speak to the people who weren't already willing to pay $1,000 and travel to Calgary to cast a vote for him. There was no real reaching out to anybody else. He was mentioning a couple of things, and then pretty much the rest of his thing in between moments of mentioning his family and stuff like that was pretty much his standard basic stump speech that he's been delivering for some time now, with some slight modifications along the way. Certain things don't work, or don't. There's no need for them anymore, so you can't talk about the consumer carbon tax all that much anymore. But he keeps on claiming that there are more taxes. Some of the things he talked about there is mentioning about Trudeau having double debt, but of course he doesn't mention why, because we have this little thing called COVID, maybe, and not because liberals are just inherently bad managers of money. He mentioned something that about criticizing Mark Carney for having approved 0 pipelines yet, without mentioning that there are 0 pipeline proposals to be approved yet. So maybe that's why, and it's not a sign of incompetence. Also stated that if he had to rebuild the party from scratch, which he has no intent of doing, he would call it the Mind Your Own Business Party, which of course is ironic, given that they talk about minding your own business, but they are all up in your womb if you want an abortion. They are all up in your bed sheets if you are, rainbow and having sex, and they are all up between your relationship between you and your doctor if you happen to be transgender. They also want to be all up between your relationship with the relationship between you and your employer if you happen to be a minority of some kind. And it was really interesting to watch Michelle Rempel Garner, Melissa Lansman, and I think it was Jamil Jawani, among others, making some anti-DEI statements when all 3 of them probably would not have their nomination papers signed by the Conservative Party of Canada if it was all based on merit as compared to the white male standard. But they're basically cheering against their own interests there. But apparently, he wants to be the Mind Your Own Business Party. Oh, he also wants to get in between the relationship between you and a judge when it comes to sentencing by imposing minimum sentences using the notwithstanding clause on you. He's also run on that. So I'm not when he said it would be the Mind Your Own Business Party, a nice belly laugh out of that one. Then, of course, he spent some time shining the shiniest silver medal in Canadian political history, talking about stuff like Elections Canada. Every election goes into the schools and holds a mock vote, and it seems the Conservatives won that one. So he's taking pride on that. Somehow, I'm not sure. I've participated in a vote like that when I was a kid in school too. Except back then we didn't use the actual political parties. We just suggested Canadians that we liked. So, being kids back in those days, a lot of us picked Wayne Gretzky. Little did we know back then. He did talk very, very briefly, less than 30 seconds, about actual party stuff that he needs to do to improve the party, such as holding earlier nominations, having open nominations for ridings, of course, more local autonomy for riding associations. But that was literally all he had about how to improve the party, and then jumped right into something that was really weird, saying that the most important word that he had got to, the most important thing he had learned from talking to people in the party was to, how did he put it? To ignore the voices that keep telling us to abandon our principles. I'm not sure who's telling them that. I mean, unless he's talking about like liberals and whatnot, telling them like, would you just stop being racist? We don't like that principle. But apparently, yes, there are people telling conservatives that they should abandon their principles, and we will never do that. And Pierre was told, do not abandon our principles. I guess the obvious follow-up question there is which wing of the party and which principles? Because there's a few of them that they should probably let go of. Just saying. Then he goes on to keep on shining that silver medal, stating, quote, we won the debate on every single one of the big issues. Well, if you won the debate on every single one of the big issues, why are you not the prime minister? Oh yes, that would be because the biggest issue of the last election campaign was leadership and ability to deal with Trump, and you lost on both of those. And in his speech, or in your speech, Mr. Poilièvre, you didn't mention Trump's name once. Even though he just recently called the Prime Minister governor again, recently said that Canada wasn't grateful, Godfather mob style, threatened 100% tariffs on us before he tackled on everything, and then threatened another huge tariff on Bombardier private jets, I guess, and then is probably tackling himself on that as well. But yes, he still doesn't have a bad word to say about Trump when he's assembled all of the members of the cult under the tent. Okay, interesting there. Then he has criticized the liberals by stating something like, the liberals said we had no policies, and then they said conservative policies are very scary, and now they agree with all of our policies. That's also not true, and the inherent contradiction in that statement is, well, if it is true that the liberals first said you had no policies and then said your policies are scary, and now they agree with all your policies, you're voting against them. That's a little inconvenient. If they're your policies and they're great ideas, why are you not voting for them? It's an obvious question. So let's see what else. Continuing on, I took a lot of notes. He says the best part of being a conservative is that everyone always eventually admits that we were right all along. Yeah, that does not happen. That does not happen. Right now, there are people showing lots of clips of the debates between John Turner and Brian Mulroney, where John Turner was suggesting that it might not be a good idea to integrate that closely with the United States, and that Brian Mulroney looking at him and talking at him as if he was an alien who didn't know what they were talking about. Well, here we are 32 years later about. And us having integrated as much as we have with the United States, turns out is not serving us well. And we are now in a vulnerable position, increasingly less vulnerable thanks to Mark Carney with every deal and every trip he makes. But yeah, we found ourselves in a not great situation, the situation that John Turner pretty much predicted would happen, did. So conservatives were wrong. Conservatives were wrong. They were also wrong about the barbaric practices snitch line. They were also wrong about they were wrong about a lot of things. I think, Pierre, you yourself were wrong about the alleged Fair Elections Act, your own piece of legislation that you passed, and that has is basically a memory because none of it exists anymore. First, it was gutted by the courts, and then it was gutted by the subsequent government. Oh boy! Then he mentions. Let me just take a look at this here. I'm just going to make sure you can read my handwriting there. I have no. Oh yes, he's talking about the United States and everything that's going on there, and he refers to it as unfair and undeserved U.S. tariffs and diplomatic distractions from down south and other places. That is renting a guide and a backpack for a 3-day trip in the woods, to not say United States or maybe China. And not to say they're screwing us over. Unfair and undeserved tariffs from the U.S. Well, sorry, unfair and undeserved U.S. tariffs and diplomatic distractions. Okay, let's be cute. All right, kids and cubs, that's it for this morning for our Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us, especially if you include a little bit of yourself when you do. Let us know, let people know why it is you appreciate our content. All right, kids and cubs, I have to do this relatively quickly today. So if you would like to help us, and sorry for my finger showing up there, I'm looking for the codes here for you. If you would like to help us, kids and cubs, you can do so by traveling to the True North Eager Beaver YouTube media page, where Kids, Cassie, and Elaine will certainly approve of you being there. And give our buttons like, share, and subscribe a little click, and we hope that helps us with the algorithm. We know it does, and it's because of you that it does. So there you go. Kids and cubs as well, if you would like to help us financially with the costs that we incur to bring this show to you, we would appreciate your support of us via contribution to the Emergency Beaver Lodge Hydration Fund at our coffee page. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. Drop a couple of toonies in our jar there. We would be very, very, very grateful. And if you're listening on YouTube, remember we have the super chat and memberships. And if you're doing the Buy Canadian thing, kids and cubs, remember truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is our email address, so you can send us a bank transfer that avoids the USCE Tech Pros. And of course, our email address, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, is where you can write to us if you would like to share some thoughts about the show or our guests, make some recommendations, share some articles, and of course, let us know some good news going on in your world, because the doom scroll can be a lot. All right, kids and cubs, because democracy is something that you do, remember, kids and cubs, on the 7th is the vote on PEI for the leadership of the PC Conservative Party. We have our 2 petitions. The numbers I do not have at the top of my head here, but one for increased Canadian ownership of Canadian media, and the other to ask the Minister of Health to invoke Section 90, the disallowance clause of our Constitution, to stand with the transgender children in Alberta and Saskatchewan who've been attacked by the government and shielded from or prevented from being able to use their legal rights to fight that discrimination because the premiers invoked the notwithstanding clause. So please do that. And of course, there's the public consultation for the high-speed train, which you can go to, I believe it is altotrain.ca/en/public-consultation, and you can let them know your thoughts either about the path or any environmental concerns you might have, anything of the kind. This is the moment, And of course, there are going to be some virtual sessions online and some in-person sessions as well. So please go check them out. All right. Let's see. That's because democracy something could you do? Okay, words of wisdom, kids and cubs. Breathing is so helpful. On the whole trip here, there are so many times I wanted to burst out yelling, screaming, swearing, and slamming stuff. And it's just breathe, breathe, breathe. There was a lot of, oh, but of course. Excuse me, we're not going to be taking off. We have a flat tire. Of course you have a flat tire. Why would this part of the trip go smoothly? None of it has so far. Excuse me, well, we're going to have to, we just landed, but we're going to have to wait a little while to get to the gate. Well, of course you would, because we're already late by a lot and we thought we made good time, so we're going to make our water taxi, but no, we're just going to wait here and cause me more stress and panic because why not? There was a lot of internal sarcasm. Yeah. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Breathe in serenity, breathe out frustration. I've done a lot of that over the past few days. Hopefully I will not have to do that over the rest of my vacation. My Beaver sweetie, however, is having a wonderful time. He's a little less stressed than I am. So I think it may be because I really needed this vacation so bad. I just wanted to start. I was telling everybody that before I get on the plane, as soon as we get in the car to go to the airport or to go to Toronto, I would already be feeling on vacation, and that didn't happen. I'm hoping I wake up tomorrow feeling like I'm on vacation. So please wish that for me. It could be a tough world out there, kids and cubs. So please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And now, at the count of 3, may I please ask you, kids and cubs, can you say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock on 1, 2, and 3. Let me hear you. Oh, I can hear you all the way from Mexico. Hey, you guys did pretty good. And since you asked, how can I resist? Here you go, kids and cubs.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.
And kids and cubs, just a little note of Canadians who make us proud. The Canadian Olympic team, they are there. And a competition, I believe, starts tomorrow in luge, curling, and I believe alpine skiing. So go, Canada, go. Do your patriotic duty. Watch, cheer them on. Opening ceremonies are on the 6th. Hope you enjoyed our interview with Devin Haru. Amouri bisous. I'm out, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone. And I cannot seem to end the stream. This is very, very bad. Nah, this is terrible. Why can I not end the stream? Oh, no, don't do this to me.